This kid was kind of almost weird, but he was brilliant. 20 years ago when we first started doing this in Long Island in Hempstead, he came up with the idea for virtual reality goggles.
That's great.
And we were all looking at him like,
I remember you telling me that's crazy.
we were all looking at him like, this guy is out of his mind. And they gave me, they hired me and they paid me a certain amount. So I did this business plan writing competition. I did a contest, $2,000 to the winner. He came up with this idea for a virtual reality, and then 3 years later, I saw it all over TV. I was like, Jesus Christ, Isaiah came up with this idea. We thought he was crazy. Another kid in the same class came up with the idea to take iPads and put them in the dashboard of cars. I swear to you, and I'm sure 3 years later when I saw it on TV, I saw it in a Cadillac commercial, I was like, oh my God, that's such and such's idea right there. So our kids naturally know how to do this. So what I'm proposing is so basically engineers make these disruptors. What I found out was that Northeastern, I'm chasing all these rappers and athletes around thinking that they're the big money makers. I come to find out that Northeastern gave me the tools to make a disruptor, but didn't show me how to do it purposefully. Almost like, like if somebody ever is trying to show you something, they do it fast and you can't figure out what you're doing. That's what they did to me. So when I found this out, you ever seen the movie Blow when Johnny Depp was at the end and he thinks his daughter's coming to visit him and he realized, and he looks around like, that's how I felt when I realized that I'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars chasing rappers and athletes from VIP parties to the Hamptons to LA, trying to figure out how they would. When I found out that I was chasing after myself, I was beyond upset. Right. I felt like Malcolm. I felt like Denzel, and I've been hoodwinked, right? And that's where this came from. That's when I finally, because remember when Jay-Z bought Tidal?
Yes.
There's a guy named Sean Fanning who invented Napster. Destroyed the whole music industry. Justin Timberlake played his character in The Social Network. They say he went to Dartmouth. He didn't go to Dartmouth. He went to Northeastern with me. But they want to keep this in the Ivy League with just the wealthy kids, right? So when I figured out that I knew how to make these things, I said I have to do something about this. And every little black child that you see out here dressing in athletic clothes is because they don't know that Jay-Z figures this out, because he goes out to the Hamptons and he's hanging out with them and they tell him, right? And he's like, all right, well, I can't go back to school to become an engineer. Let me buy a disruptor. Because he witnessed what Napster did to the music industry. So what I'm saying we should do, if we can come up with a way to teach simple, because that was my job, to explain all this technology so simple even a baby can understand it. People think that this engineering thing is very difficult. I'm saying that I can teach every young black boy, whether they go to college or not, whether they think they're going to be a gangster or not, in one book, I can teach them how to disrupt and let me tell you what a disruptor does. Example.
So before we get to that,
okay.
Before we transition, this is a quote that I've known since I was a kid. It's been around since probably Willie Lynch era, slavery. You want to hide something from a black man within the world.
Right.
So how do we get these brothers and sisters to actually read the book? When it's been such a challenge for centuries for that to happen.
There's a book by the god of business. His name is Dale Carnegie. And it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Every businessman that's successful in corporate America has read this book. If you don't read that book, you'll get fired if you work in corporate. Basic premise of the book is simple. If you want anyone to do anything for you ever, you got to show them that doing what you want them to do is going to get them what they want in life. The only thing that young black children, men, old, anybody wants more and desires more than the pain of reading a book is a money machine. If they believe that there's money in that book,
they'll figure it out.
They will read it. But they're not reading because they don't believe that there's anything in those books for them. I'm telling you that I can teach you how to make these disruptors so simple, and I can explain it to you so simple that whether you go to college or not, you can stand toe-to-toe with any Harvard or any frat boy that goes to any college, and I can teach you how to eat his lunch.
Now, another thing we discussed in trenches just a little bit, we was at a park. You had mentioned about ownership in Black communities.
Yeah.
And I was telling you, I felt the same sentiment. I didn't actually know the numbers. But growing up, you had the Chinese store, you had the bodega, you had every other ethnic race that was in our communities that we spent money with, but I never saw Black ownership. Every once in a while, you might see the soul food spot, but again, that was mostly kind of run down, kind of not put together. But yeah, if you can share some of those statistics that you were telling me about the ownership.
It's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. So, as I've been doing this and coming up with all these stats, I found out that in any functioning community, 60% of the people that live in that community have to own the businesses in that community. Anything less than 60% is the mathematical definition of a ghetto, regardless of color, right? In the Black community today, less than 2% of the people that live there own the businesses there. So when you walk through a community, rap music, the demonstrative part, or what we don't like about rap music, right? Drugs and all that stuff. I mean, rap music is entertaining, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Rap music is basically just trumpeting the fact that we don't own the businesses in our own communities.
Yeah, I think rap has been used to weaponize and spread propaganda. I think a lot of people, when people say that, what we're saying, I think they think we're attacking the music or attacking rap. When you actually listen to the artists, you speak to the artists themselves, because I was in music, I managed producers, I managed artists, I had my own studio. The artists don't want to necessarily make those kind of music. They realize that I'm going to get the money from the labels, I'm going to get the money from whoever if I make this, because they're navigating.
What's in it for them?
I've even been in situations where artists have made music and the A&Rs are like, nah, we need you to talk about this, we need you to talk about that. And if you didn't, then you get shelved.
Exactly.
So that threat of not having any money when you're like close to the door kind of pushes that. So I definitely believe rap has been weaponized in the last 20 years. I don't think it was always the case.
What's in it for them?
Exactly.
Like back to that theory, how to win friends and influence people.
Right.
If you want somebody to do something, what you want them to do, what's in it for you? If you don't make music that's going to destroy your own people, you're not going to get a check. Right?
Right.
So what we have to do is find a way to install this in the bloodstream of our community, because if the young kids find out that the rappers and athletes are lying to them, that they're not, so a disruptive innovation basically is like Rolls Royce is out there selling cars for $500,000. Some kid at some Ivy League school comes up with a way to produce a Rolls Royce for 20 grand. By the time Rolls Royce turns around and figures out that they're losing all their customers, it's too late.
Right.
Disruptors kill Fortune 500 companies.
So two things with that. Not to play devil's advocate, but just a little resistance and keep us on our toes. I personally believe 98% of the rappers don't actually even know what they're doing. They're just trying to get out of their current situation. I think it's only really 2% that actually know what's going on. I'm not going to name names, but we all know the guys who are asking me, like, rap. You can name rappers from the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, mid 2000s that had hits. We don't know about them. There's only a very selective few that we know. And secondly, when these disruptors are created, when they create these things to disrupt, what's to say that these large companies won't buy them out? Because I've seen that personally, where somebody has come up with something that was very ingenious, but companies are like, hey, listen, you know those problems? Come on my side, I'll give you X amount of money, be quiet, move to the side, I'll throw the technology away, or, I'll put it out on my terms. Like, what's there to stop that from actually happening?
There's nothing to stop that from happening. The only thing that's going to stop that from happening is if you understand the long-term value of your product, and you know that, so they tried to buy out Mark Zuckerberg. He was like, no. He knew that he could become $100 million, billion-dollar man, but they were trying to buy him out for $1 million or $2 million. He's like, no, I know how much to, see, the core of the corporate world is value. The engineers make the value and the salespeople sell it. If our children don't know what value is academically, how are they ever to create value for themselves? They don't know what it is. They teach the salespeople, they taught me what value is so that I can talk people into buying my product. That's what's in the book. If you know what value is and you know how to discover it, that's why whenever you hear them talk about CEOs, they say CEO and founder, because that person found the value. They saw it. They were a visionary. They can see value where you'll just walk by because you don't know what value is. Right? So if we teach black and brown children what value is, how to identify it, engineer it, and sell it, there's nothing anybody can do to stop it.
So give me an example about value when it comes to ownership in the community. Tell me, I have several examples, but I would love for you to share.
I would have to tell you what value is. Quickly, just as a quick cheat sheet on value. Value is basically a product's ability to protect you from pain. Anything pain, and there's only 4 of them. I don't want to get too nerdy. They're in the book. There's only 4 of them, right? If you can come up with an idea for a product that protects people from these 4, they call them pain points, people will give you their money, right? Now, the reason why black people have an advantage is because we're in the most pain. The wealthy white people, white, black, or whoever, because this is not a white or black thing, they don't even know what pain is anymore because they've got so much money. They can insulate themselves in so much comfort, like these comfortable chairs, and they can have a limo comfort. They don't know what pain is anymore. They're waiting for us to come and show them how to come and invent new value, and they will invest in us and give us all the money that we need to turn that value into a product to sell all over the world. There's nothing anybody can do. The problem is they only teach the salespeople what it is. I happen to know what it is, so we can teach. Right now, black people think, black youth, they believe their value is in their ability to inflict pain on each other. The media teaches them to do that. They don't realize that the people who are making millions and billions are doing the exact opposite.
I'll simplify. I'll make it even smaller. I'll give an example myself. So coming up, 46, coming up, most of the time I eat Chinese food. A large percentage of the time. This particular Chinese restaurant by me, one of the kids were the same age. We actually got cool, kids were playing around with each other. From the age of probably 12, I knew I couldn't afford college. Just kind of did it, right? Again, we're playing around, we get to high school, go to high school, that Asian kid was preparing to go away to school. He went away to school, he graduated, went to grad school, went to med school. I saw that growth from that one store. That showed me value. That showed the millions of dollars that they made from that one store. Now, mind you, it wasn't elaborate, the decor wasn't off the hook, they had the bulletproof windows, you see the scratches, and people graffiti and tagging. But they made so much money from that store, they were able to put their sons, or all the kids through school, and eventually have a nice house in upstate New York. That's when I realized how much value. Also, another situation with the laundromat, not get too detailed, but the same situation, the laundromat was actually put into the community, and that family was able to put all their kids, came very poor. And again, I'm not mad at it, they worked their behinds off, but they in less than one generation, they were able to change their whole family's trajectory.
Indeed. Just to speak to the point that I heard, this is common knowledge. If you read the Wall Street Journal for 2 years straight, every day, that's the equivalent of a master's in business administration from any college. You can put that on your resume. So for all of these kids out here that are not going to go to college and don't have and are just lost coming out of jail. How are we going to prepare them? Because these disruptors are pointed right at our community. They say that in the next 10 years, these disruptors are going to consume every industry, and they're going to make it so that the average salary in the black community is zero. So how are we going to protect them from this? And I'm saying, with this book, we can teach every kid, black, brown, whatever, what disruptors are and how to make them, and put them on a path where they're not afraid of reading the Wall Street Journal, where they can hear people having these quote-unquote high-level conversations and know exactly what they're told. We can get them in the game quickly. We don't have 4 years. Our people can't, it's just never going to happen for our people. We've got to find a way to teach them in 1 year, if not less.
So that's a great segue, because for me, I think at this point in time, it's technology. I think we live in an information era, as well as a technology era. A lot of information that was not available before, or easily available before, is right in front of us. All of us are walking around with a computer and our hand with our phones. So I think technology will allow that to happen. However, I still believe we're still way behind. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily from us being behind or just a societal thing, but about 3 weeks ago, they had like awards for like the top influencers. I think it was let me lie, I'm sorry. It was a list. They had basically the top influencers in like the world, in the United States, and none of them were black. And it was like, how if hip hop is the #1 genre of music, and it's controlling culture in the United States of America. The last couple of Super Bowls have all been rap artists. How is it no influencers in the top 10? How is it that nobody owns a social media app?
I believe I know why that is. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the stereotype with black people is that we don't add value to society. We steal and rob and take value from society. So nobody is going to believe that because you're black and you're a black man, specifically you and I, that we're here, that we can have something that's this valuable, that can protect the world from this much pain. The stereotype for us is that we are bulls that we can box, we can play football and be a running back, right? We can inflict pain, but we can't cure it.
So, I know you said stereotype. However, there's a ton of evidence that shows how much stuff we've created and invented throughout the years when it comes to medicine, when it comes to racial, there's a ton of stuff at this point. Now, I know it's not readily given out there. We have to actually do some research to find it. But I think that's, at least I would like to think, ever since Juneteenth came about, I've seen in masses a lot of that information being debunked and falsified.
It's on the fringes. But it's not. If that information was readily available, became common knowledge, black boys and girls would be out here calling each other the N-word.
So, and then again, this is going back a little bit in our discussion. How do we make being smart look cool? Because I understand that. However, there's a lot of people who got money and still act stupid, because they got the money from acting stupid.
Correct.
A lot of that stigma, as far as us being thugs and we only get money for fighting, is because those people are put into the forefront, even in our community. They're put in other people's community, they're put into the forefront. Again, I don't want to drop names or anything like that, but I don't see people saying, I want to grow up to be a doctor, I want to grow up to be a lawyer, right? You actually use terminologies, nerd and weird, and I personally think those terms are actually worse than an N-word. Because now, you calling somebody a nerd, that's never, somebody, in my opinion, that's never been looked at as a good thing. So you're telling somebody it's actually bad to be smart. Be dumb. If you're being dumb, it's cooler. Weird. Why am I weird? Because I'm different from you. Different is actually amazing. Different is the disruptor that you're talking about. So I think a lot of the language we have to kind of change and transform